prestigious Royal College of Arts, London. Throughout his career, he was involved in the design of numerous production vehicles for world-leading brands such as Maserati, Audi, GM Forum, etc., which have been exhibited during the Beijing Motor Show, the Geneva Motor Show, Ever in Monaco, London Transport Museum, and Le Lieu du Design in Paris. Mr. Andrea will be speaking today on designing cars for a dynamic culture. Without any further ado, I'd like to invite Mr. Andrea on stage.
All right, can you hear me well? Yes. So, Kaseo, Aiti Kampur. I hope I pronounced it right. But the slide looks a bit stretched. I don't know. Yes, perfect. Yeah. Well, I'm Andrea Mocellin. Thanks to attending today my speech. I'm a car designer coming from Italy, and today basically I'm going to talk about my background, about my professional experiences, so what took me from the studies to my actual job, and then we'll basically describe how to shape cars for dynamic culture. So how you shape cars in the 2017. So if you have any question, please feel free to questioning. I'm here for answering to your curiosities. And mainly, I would like to start from where I'm coming from. I'm coming from a really tiny village, not far away from Venice. It's called Sanazzaria. And basically, in this village, as you see, there is no car design studios, but mainly it's just nature. It's just people doing handcraft work and enjoying life. So what took me to discover the world of the car design was more the curiosity to understand how to combine three main things. That was travel, dream, and design. My main target was to combine these three big points, and the only job that I knew that was like condensing all these things was the car design job. So what I really wanted to do was basically design the mobility of the future. Mobility of the future can be of different kind. It's not just cars, it's all kind of transportation. So what I start to do is like looking to explore the design field. Try to understand how can I get to know the best designer existing in that period. I don't know if you know Ettore Sozzas or Vico Magistrati. They are all like masters, these people basically. Master of the industrial design of the 70s and 60s. My first job was in Murano, not far away from Venice, where I actually learned to work with the glass. So I started to understand how to craftsmanship, how to design things with tradition. Then I had the opportunity to move to Torino. Torino is basically the motor city of Europe. So everything is happening there. Torino is full of design studios where you shape cars and you basically design the cars of the future. And I had a scholarship in IED. It's basically the biggest school, car design school in Italy. And they are basically preparing all the people to getting a job actually in a car design studio all around the world. This one was actually my first project I did in YED, was like a MPV, a small MPV, which allowed me to get inside the Lancia design studio, get to know the people working there, and understand how to evolve a project from the sketch to the final model. Then what really was important for me was traveling. So I really pushed myself to travel a lot. Coming from a tiny village was not easy. So I really pushed myself to approach different kind of experiences. Basically, I was working for Channel 4 for an interior design studio. Then I was working for General Motors Forum during the Paris Motor Show. All experiences that helped me a lot to understand how to approach the car design world and basically how to get to know people working in that field. Then what I really wanted to do was getting a master course, and I really wanted to get a master course in the Royal College of Art in London, because actually you just not study there, but you try to work as an independent designer in this university. So you are able to work with the professionals, you are able to follow a project from the first briefing to the final models and exhibitions. And during these years, I can actually follow my dream job, that was actually get position in Audi. And at the same time, I had the opportunity to work with different companies at that time, in collaboration with different companies to follow projects. It was like Volkswagen and Kia, before to get a job in Audi, where I got my internship and basically my final thesis sponsored by them. So there was this kind of great opportunity to live in Germany and try to understand how the design studio work in our everyday life. It was really impressive to the difference between studies and proper work. So at the beginning, I had to face a lot of complication, let's say, about how to deal with the projects. But at the same time, I had the input to finalize my final thesis that was based on Auto Union. Auto Union was actually my favorite car in terms of functionality and shape, because it was so minimal and so extreme that I wanted to bring this soul about the Audi design on my final thesis. As you see, like when you start a project in a car design, you always start from sketches and then Photoshop. And then you take the project to another step that is more like a 3D modeling, where you analyze what you can actually do and what you can't do. All these are basically Photoshop renderings, and this one are more like a 3D model I made to understand how you move inside the car, so how you interact with the vehicle while you are driving it. Then you go to the final show. So during the Royal College of Art, you have the chance to finalize the model in collaboration with big OEMs. In this case was Audi, that sponsored the model. Then you face actually the problem that you will have later on when you get inside the design studio. So start from the sketch, doing all the process to the media, to the renderings, to the communication. And the good things that I got a lot of feedbacks from this project. Many people was wondering if this car was actually in production. So I had a lot of emails and nice feedbacks from magazines and newspaper. And it was actually the input that allowed me to get in the design world. So what happened was like, when you finish the master course, you are wondering where you're gonna work and where you're gonna end up. Basically, when you finish a course in transportation design, you have to decide in which brand you wanna work. There is like hundreds of companies that offer the opportunity to work in the car design. But what I was more fascinating about my job was not just work for one company, but work for different brands in order to be able to design actually the core brand of the company or the AMs In this case, you see that there is Fiat, General Motors, Toyota, that has a lot of small brands correlate to this kind of big organization. And that basically control the world of the automobile. What happened next is that if you see the evolution of the car design right now is more like an evolutionary design, because from one car to the other, there is not much difference. It's more like a following. And this is why when I finished my studies, I wanted to be more influent in studios where you work with at 360 degrees. So you revolutionize the field of the car design. And that time, the opportunity was coming from Bertone, Pininfarina, and Giugiaro, that are actually coach builders based in Torino, the city where I'm living. And these coach builders are famous for different cars. Bertone for Lamborghini Miura and Stratos Zero. Then Pininfarina for all the Ferraris until a few years ago. And Giugiaro for the Golf, the DeLorean, famous for the Back to the Future movie. So in this studio, actually, you could revolutionize the world of the car design, not just following what everyone else was doing. The big problem was Bertone went bankrupt, and Italdesign went acquired by Volkswagen. So the big choice came from Pininfarina. It was actually the studios that I was actually more attracted with, because you were doing not just cars or exotic cars, but you were doing also transportation system, boat, and interior design with the concept. So things that were actually changing the world of the car design. In Pininfarina, I had time to work a couple of years in different projects, going from city cars to trains to Asian brands to logo designer. So everything was kind of learning and following my education. That was a super important step. And another really important step was working in the F12 Ferrari, Berlinetta. That was actually my first project in exterior design in Pininfarina. Also, I was able to work on interior design, so starting from sketches, going through 3D models, and following all the process that was taking a dream becoming a reality. And then, of course, working on exterior models. So this is like a 3D model that was anticipating the final model that was actually then put in production. And then what happens, like when you work for a coach builder, you realize that you don't have the knowledge about what is happening in the big OEMs, because you're working in a small studio. You're working in a small studio where you don't know actually everything about the process happening inside a car design studio. So to get this knowledge, you have to face the life in a big OEMs. So I always suggest, if you really want to become a car designer, a multitasking car designer, it's good to have experience in both sides. So a small studio like consultant and big OEMs. This is why after Pininfarina, I decided to go to Alfa Romeo and Maserati. Both brands are present also in India, and they are doing quite well actually. And during these years in Alfa Romeo and Maserati, I had a chance to understand how the people were working in these kind of companies. So how you work with full-scale models, how you work in a big team, because it's always a teamwork. It's never like just individual doing everything by himself. It's always a big work of hundreds of people. And at the same time, you are like facing also the problems about big OEMs. So a lot of meetings, a lot of politics. But at the same time, you were realizing, well, I'm in the right place to design the next car. In Maserati, I had time to work on the, let's say, exterior design DNA. So doing a lot of proposals. to evolve the design of the vehicles. Mainly for the beginning, I worked on a concept car was called Kubang, presented in Frankfurt 2011, where it was like a SUV that now is in production. It was the first SUV for Maserati. And then I was able to work on Alfa Romeo, so like a facelift for the Mito, that is actually a best-selling cars in Italy, where I was responsible for the main front design phase, and then the evolution of the brand DNA of Alfa Romeo. The big things that in the 4 years in Alfa Romeo was happening is that Alfa Romeo was part of the Fiat group, as I showed you before in a slide. All the different brands are collecting big groups of automobiles brands, and Alfa Romeo was part of FCA. At that time, FCA was acquiring by Chrysler. So basically, a lot of projects was really confidential, and no projects came out in that period. And that is actually the secret part of the car design. So sometimes it happens that you work many years in a project and then still you can't unveiling. It's taking a lot of time to finalize a car, from 3 to 4 years. So this is why actually you have to be patient. You have to wait a lot of time before to win the project and get into the production. But later on we can see all these things. What happened next is that when I got this kind of knowledge about what is happening in a coach builder life and a big OEM life, I wanted to understand how can I face myself in a freelancing world. So I took a break from my design studios work, and I became freelance. What I like to explain is that when you are freelancing, basically you can't be just one thing, like a normal phone, the first mobile phone, that was just doing calling, no texting, no apps, no internet. And at the same time, it's kind of the life inside a big design studios, because you are specialized to do one thing, and you can't face all the other factors that are influencing the car design. So what I really wanted to improve in myself was to be multitasking, so learn how to be different designer in just one person. And so you can be an exterior designer, you can be an interior designer, you can do interface, human interaction, design strategy. That is something that is quite complicated, but at the same time you can do it, because you combine all the capacity of different designers in one person that are able to be flexible inside the studio and influence the car in a different way. So during my freelancing time, I work also in India, actually, for Indian brands, and all around the world for about 6-7 months, before to get back with my former boss, called Louis Vermeersch, that was responsible for many cars, from Ferraris to Alfa Romeo and so on. Louis Vermeersch was basically former design director of Pininfarina, and he opened his own studio in 2011, where I'm working right now as chief designer, called Grand Studio. And Grand Studio is still based in Torino, and what I really like about Grand Studio is that, as you see from this picture, you live in a architecture studio apartment. So it's not this kind of big factories with big studios with hundreds of designers. It's basically a small and super compact team working on hundreds of projects per year and developing a lot of different transportation systems, cars for Asian brands, European brands, American brands. So what is really nice is, like, with such a compact team, you can actually do the work of hundreds of people. This one is the building we are where we are working right now in downtown Torino. And what we love to do is basically respect to the other brands that like I showed you before, Audi as an evolutionary design, Volkswagen Golf as an evolutionary design. What we like to do is take in consideration the technology, the product, the user experience, and the vision, and merge all these things together. In this way, the approach is really holistic, let's say, and is taking reference in a vision that is going really far away, and then is going back to the reality to combine technology with dreams and vision. So it's all things that I showed you before, why I started this job, because I wanted actually to approach this kind of typology of design research. Do you have any question? Is pretty much clear? Yes. So the area of competence that there is right now in the car design studio is different than in the past. What we really like to do in Grand Studio is basically study the micro mobility. So everything that is facing the mobility from A to B, that is not hundreds of kilometers, that are not like thousands of kilometers, but just small distances, like coming from the hostel visitor to here. So how you move, by bicycle, by scooter, by walk. Then there is the urban mobility, that is more like autonomous driving, driverless, that is all technology that are coming up right now quite strongly. Intercity, so like how you move between cities for long distances, hundreds of kilometers. And then leisure and performance, so like sports car, Ferraris, and different typology of cars for sure. So how you combine all this kind of typology in studio is what we are doing right now, because we believe in the future there will be more and more this kind of needs. So working with the present and build the future, not just a single project, but I think it's really important to work always with a vision, in a way to don't finish a project and start another one without learn anything. So it's always good to implement what you are doing. So growing up day by day with your concept, your vision, and the brand DNA. So this is why we have this kind of special relationship with the client, between our studio and the client itself, that are going far away from the typical way of designing cars that it was existing 20 years from now. So basically in the studio what we are doing is like sketching a lot, as you see, a lot of hand drawings that are always present in the car design life. Then you always go to the virtual modeling, but then we will see in the next slide all the process that is taking a concept car to become a reality. So you work on 3D with different software, from Alias to iSemSurf, and you try to get the best finalization possible. Right now with the 3D model you can actually do whatever you want, just is missing the tangible, the touch of the models that you can just do it in real. Then there is the style engineering, so also the engineering part has to be nice, not just functional, but also beautiful in the way to combine these two fields together. And then, of course, the engineering development. So you can't do a car without follow a clear engineering plan. So it's always the main problem to make a dream a reality. There is always this kind of big gap. And something that is really, really important right now is HMI design. HMI design is basically the interaction between human and machine. So we are really, really looking to improve this field in the future. We have a special area in the studio working just in these projects with a lot of clients, not just coming from the car design world. And the interface allowed you to live the car in a different way, much more interactive, much more clear and fascinating. Also, Chinese culture is really interesting in this way, to develop interface that are kind of completely different than the European culture or American culture. This is why then you have to move on the art model, so the prototypes building. That is actually what we are doing at the end of the project in order to make the dream a reality. And in this case, you start to see that the sketching are becoming alive. You see that the material is becoming alive, and just with a little paint, you get the finalization that you want before to go to the motor show and on the media. I will try to be quick in order to show you better and better all the process coming from the first sketch briefing to the final prototype. So before to go to this big project I worked on last year, we have also a studio in Amsterdam working on strategically on the strategic process, so analyzing how you evolve one brand in the future, as I said before. So how you move people around the globe. Is interesting always to understand how in a different culture people are seeing the transportation. Some cultures see the cars like a home, some other cultures see the car like a status, and so on. So it's always important to analyze this aspect before to start a proper project. So quickly, I just wanted to show you what is happening right now in the car design market. Basically, in China right now, the cars are selling like crazy because people now can afford the car. So the quantity of car they are producing in China right now is kind of insane in respect to the other countries that are leading the world. And all these kind of things make a lot of difference in the way of shaping the cars of the future. Basically, you see that in China overcome US a lot in terms of selling new cars every month, and that changed also the request of the companies to car design studio like us in order to shape the future of the brands. Because mainly in China there is a lot of emerging companies, electric car companies, national car companies, so based on government funding and so on. And all these companies are looking for a new identity, something that Audi already have, something that Volkswagen already have. So for a car designer, it's much more exciting to work in this kind of world, respect to designing maybe the new Golf or the new A3. So in this way, you can actually really use creativity 100%. You can use all your knowledge to change and shape this brand forever. Just to conclude, like in China, basically only 3 brands are in the top 10 setting. We are always collaborating with Bike Motors. That is a really big company, not just doing cars, but also trucks, buses, and so on. So a lot of transportation systems. But Changan is actually the best-selling Chinese cars in China itself. And then, of course, Volkswagen, General Motors, Hyundai, and so on. So, actually, the project that I wanted to describe to you is the concept car that I was leading later the last year, and that was unveiled in Beijing Motor Show. And this car is called Senova O-Space. I don't know if some of you know this car. It's basically a new type of vehicle for a dynamic culture. So this is why I wanted to show it to you, this project, because I feel that also in India, where I see a lot of energy, a lot of passion about design, a passion about changing things, not just evolving things slowly. So what normally we do when we start a project is not going straight to the paper and sketch a car like we were doing 20 years from now. What we are doing right now is like creating some context factors. So analyze who is using this car, why I'm making this car for. And so you try to understand the culture, in this case the Chinese culture, as the client was from China, and especially from Beijing. So every different city has different culture and tradition. So basically you try to understand how these people live and they need, especially what the next generation will need to live better, the car, and interact with them more easily. The next step is like merging all these factors together to create a story that makes sense, create a story that can change things. And in this way, you can actually start to drawing scenarios. So you can start to drawings like situation that you normally do when you are in the car, normally do when you have to move from A to B. So what actually we are doing is kind of fun, doing a lot of comics, explaining how you move inside the car, which shape catch your eyes when you see a car passing close to you, and so on. So you kind of create this story that has to be protected over and over during the process. So when you go to China, you see this kind of situation, like crazy traffic, crazy amount of light, and everything is kind of congesting your vision, congesting your sound. And these kind of things are like really making the designer thinking, how can I actually protect the driver from this kind of frenetic life? Otherwise, everything is becoming kind of chaotic, everything is becoming difficult to approach. So what we wanted to do is like create an interior that is like facing a calm, spacious atmosphere, and at the opposite, the exterior has to be really like tough, really aggressive in a way to protect yourself and your family from the everyday traffic. If you merge these two things together, we were creating this kind of concept car. When we started this project, we were based in Torino, so in Grand Studio, and we were always collaborating with the Beijing studio in China. So there was this kind of bespoke collaboration that was super important in a way, not doing a car for an Italian car for China, but to build a Chinese car for Chinese people with some Latin flavor, let's say. So normally when you start a project, you have to build a package. So you have to say, this car will host 6 people, and in this way, you have to do a long wheelbase. The wheelbase is basically the distance from one wheel to the another, and that makes a lot of difference in the way to get inside the car, to welcoming the people. And then the ground clearance, that means like SUV, normally, if you have really bad road condition, you need a lot of ground clearance in a way to don't be hit by stones or damages along the road. So basically we built a package, a 3D package, really quick, that is actually also showing the silhouette of the car. That is really important. So we wanted to give this kind of big space in the interior, and at the same time we wanted to have like this kind of fluid and dynamic shape in a crossover package. So normally what we are doing, you have the briefing, the client asks you to do an impressive car that can be designed for a dynamic culture, but then you have to face also the aesthetics of the exterior and interior. So you start to do a lot of proposals. Normally you do 6 proposals, and normally they pick 2 of these 6 proposals in order to develop a 3D model or a full-scale model. When you pick these 2 proposals, you have to find, let's say, the key point language. So in this case, the main language was creating this kind of geometry, pure geometry, clean geometry, and especially create this kind of crossover between an MPV and a SUV. So a kind of mix between these two vehicles in a way to evolve the car design, as we said before, in a way to change what was actually already existing. So you start with sketching by hand. This is all and the sketches we are doing at the starting point. So a lot of research about the architecture of the car, about the mainly shape of the car. And then you go through the finalization to find the key sketch. The key sketch is helping you to understand how to transmit this kind of form language into the whole car. In this case, as we said before, we wanted to give a strong impact to the exterior and a really calm and spacious feeling on the interior. This is why in this sketch, basically, that is the main core of the project. A long car, really dynamic, but still in a proportion that is not really common right now. This one was the main sketch done by Photoshop, so it was like a front view. And this one was the rear view. As you see, all the two views has to be coherent. So they have to speak the same language, they have to speak the same intention to create something different, and especially design things that are not common and already seen. And not just that things, also you have to go to the details. All the details has to be coherent with exterior design, with interior design. So everything is basically talking to each other. Then, at the opposite, you also have to design the interior. The interior, in this case, needed to transmit the peace, like needed to transmit a sense of calm. And especially, as we said before, there was the need to integrate screens and interaction design in this vehicle. So this one was basically the sketch selected by one of our designers. And normally what you do after your sketch is being selected, you quickly do a 3D model. You quickly do a 3D model in different software. It can be Grasshopper, AIMA, Alias, or Maya. Depends by the designer. We always let the designer test themselves in terms of ability to 3D model their idea. It's super important actually to know how to shape your idea in 3D, just to don't let the dream stopped by an end sketch of a Photoshop sketch. So it's really important also to then understand the proportion of the vehicle. When you go to the finalization of the sketch, and you do a quick 3D model, and then you go to the foam model. The foam model is basically a full-scale prototype that is made to study the proportion and the actual design of the car. You see that we have done, in that case, two different proposals as the one selected. And the same you do for the interior. In this case, with the foam model, it's really important because you can tape it, you can paint it, and you can play a lot with it in order to understand how the shape looks like and everything like that, in a way to really sketch the car also in the real life. And then finish the foam model. That is the first big step in the way of modeling. You go again in drawings. So you really like start again to sketch the car, let's say going to the details more and more in a way to slowly get to the finalization of it. And a lot of importance is coming from the teamwork. So you see, nothing came by themselves. You always have to work with a lot of people, engineers, also like people coming from the studio in China, craftsmanship. So it's also important to know how the craftsmanship can help improve the quality of the final prototype, and the 3D modelers. So you have to communicate what your idea to the cast modeler, in the way that still the emotion stays there, still the shapes stays there, and at the end of the project you will be proud of in a way of quality and the details. And then an important thing is also the color and trim. Color and trim is basically the selection of the materials that you put inside the car. In this case, there was a lot of work in terms of creating a scale of gray coming from titanium, aluminum, carbon fiber, and so on. So we did a lot of work in terms of material, in terms of leather, to have this kind of high-tech feeling, both in exterior and interior. And then, when you have all this information, you have to build the model. You have to build the prototype that we go then in the motor show. We go then in the final stage. Normally, this kind of projects takes 7-8 months. In this case, the car is being done in 3 months. 3 months from the first sketch and the briefing to the motor show. So it was a super tight timing, kind of crazy that time, but allowed us to work straight up, like with no doubt, just doing things and finalize it. This is why also the virtual modeling helped a lot. With the virtual modeling, you cut a lot of timing because you don't have to do over and over a lot of physical models. You go more in a cast model in the way to finalize everything until the end. As you see in a 3D model, you can study also all the cuts about the seat and the details, and especially you can, with the virtual modeling, you can test the VR, the virtual reality. So you can actually, with the Oculus, I don't know if you know, guys, you can actually see the real car in virtual reality. So you can play with it, you can change colors, you can change the design really quick, and this kind of technology is changing a lot the way we are shaping cars, because are cutting the timing of the development, and in the same time you can actually see with the client in the real time the same car and play with it. So like everything is becoming much more dynamic, everything is becoming much more interesting for both designer and clients. As we said before, HMI is having over and over more importance. As you see, there is a big screen in this car at the center and 3 little buttons, and then a trackpad. In this way, when you want to use the screen, you can just press one of the 3 buttons, and with the trackpad you can control it singularly, individually, and change the interface. So if you want more a peaceful interface, a more aggressive interface, sportive interface, you can just change quickly with a quick button. And then with the trackpad, you can decide if you want to call your friend, if you want to have a check about your health condition, and so on. I have a small video here showing the functionality of this interface. As you see, it's like having your computer inside the car, checking your health condition, also the speed of the car and everything. And this kind of technology and approach will go over and over in the time with more importance, because people inside the car will drive less time, and because with the driverless technology will be more space for the entertaining and to feel like in a second home. But at the same time, you have to face the fact that you have to build the prototype. You have to make the prototype real. So you go to the workshop. In the workshop, you have to build everything from the frame to the structure of the car. So you are milling basically the main body of the car, and with this body you are preparing the space for the doors, you are preparing the space to where to locate the wheels, and where to mold all the glasses part. it's kind of a really nice part of the job, because you start to feel that all the investment that the client are putting in this project are coming in reality. But at the same time, you have to face the fact that the car is never finished until you go to the stage. Because even where you are in the paint shop, where you feel like the job is finished, you have still to refine every single line. You have to work in every single details in order to keep the quality always highest possible. And still, you see that even when the car is painting, there is still all the details to locate, all the details to put it together. And you see how many pieces you need to build a prototype. It's like, let's say, around 1,000 maybe components, and you have to fix all these components together. Every component has different colors, and then every component, especially for show cars, has to be different, has to be new, has to be unique. So this is why in this kind of process, you can't use the virtual reality, because you have to be there, you have to touch the piece, you have to decide the color with the paint masters. So in this case, the car design is still like a romance. So it's keep maintaining this kind of physical approach to the final prototype. And still, you have to work on the rims. So also the rims need a lot of work with the carbon fiber element. Also the light has to be combined with a lot of parts, different parts, coming from LED to different technologies. And all this part, slowly and slowly, as you see from this video, are coming together. So after weeks and weeks of work, you start to see that the car is coming together, with the wheels, with the door, with the glasses, with all the technology you wanted. And the best moment ever is when you really finish the car and you start to feel that it's becoming a reality. In that case, a few days before the motor show, you have to deliver in the press images, as you do when you prepare a festival. You do the brochure, you do the posters, you do like everything you can possible to attract the people to come to your stage and see the product. In this case, you prepare the renderings, let's put it like that, where you want to impress the people with the stance of the car. And then you do photo shootings, so all the steps are getting closer and closer to the end. Also in this case, it was stressful because even when you do photo shooting, you want to catch the best angles of the car, you want to catch the best details of the car in order to sell what was the meaning of this project. And what was really important was actually the coherence between exterior and interior. So as you see, the interior is talking with exterior. It's something that we're really pushing a lot in the studio, this kind of inside-out approach, in the way to make something that from inside is coming to the outside, in the way you use the car, and when you step out of the car, you are still feeling is the same object, is one thing. And the same for the interior. You see that this is a picture, you see the quality of the details, everything is defined, and all the lighting is studied in order to create the atmosphere that you want to transmit of calm and let's say innovation. Also all the light creating this kind of long and communicated let's say translation between a rear seat and a front seat. And then all the other details that normally they don't come out from a picture from a journalist, let's say. So a few days before the motor show, we just delivered some teasers. The teasers are basically a scoop you are giving to the people that are going to the motor show to say, well, we're gonna be in the stand B01 with this car. Come to see the concept car. And what happened then is like you have thousands of people in front of the prototype, where the CEO of the company are just introducing the car, and then you are just there waiting for the feedbacks of the journalist. And that is a really an amazing moment, because you realize that the car is now there, and you can just spend time with the journalist and the people to explain what was your concept and why you push so hard to get at that point. Fortunately, when we finished the project, we had a lot of really great feedbacks. Actually, the car won the prize as best concept car of the year for Car Styling magazine, and it was the first. Thank you. It was actually the first Chinese car on the cover page of Auto Design magazine. I don't know if you know it's like basically what every car designer needs to have in his desk. So it's like a design magazine where you can see the process from sketching to modeling and 3D modeling. And then all the other magazines like Car Design News and newspaper. To conclude, like, I wanted to show you a quick video on no, you have to try again. It's not working. Yes. Anyway, it's a short video showing the content of the prototype. Yes. Sorry? Yes, please. Yes. Do you have any question on the project or curiosity? Yes? Yes, I feel the designer right now cannot be just a person that sketch on paper. Maybe a few years ago there was this possibility. Right now I feel the designer has to know everything about the car. It doesn't have to be an engineer, because it doesn't have to know exactly how the chassis is working, and the engine is working and everything, but he has to be updated about everything. He needs to know how to approach the project with engineer, talk to the interaction designer, talk to all the other field that is helping to construct the car. So my suggestion is, if you want to design cars, get to know everything about it. So don't get lost in a too technical way, but at the same time realize why a car is a big success, why a car is selling well. That can matter by the design of this car, that can matter because it's costing nothing and is selling in a high price, let's say. So all these kind of factors are really influencing the car design job of nowadays. So that doesn't exist anymore, the typical car designer. Exists now a more multitasking designer that can do everything together. And this comes only from people that is curious to know about how is working the product, how you build the product, and a person that is questioning a lot of things, for sure. So let's see if the video now works. Maybe no.
Hello?
This slide, yes. Should come out. Yes. Finally, we have the videos. the animation is being done by the studio. Thank you. Also, all the animation is being studied in the studio in the way character of the car and explain shortly all the aspects of the vehicle. Normally, you project this video during the motor show when you are unveiling the car. So this one is actually all the whole process of the car design that I wanted to illustrate to you. And in this way, just to finish, all the conference was all about how can you merge these three different words about travel, dream, and design. I feel it's possible right now. We are like in the perfect era, let's say, to do it, because with the driverless, with the interaction design, with a lot of startups, you can actually build the future of the transportation. And also you guys are the one that actually can do it. And so I'm really looking forward to see you in the future to explain to me like what is going on in the world of the car design and the mobility context. So thank you very much. Thank you. So please feel free to ask any question if you have. Yes.
Hello, Andre.
Hi.
Your presentation was very enjoyable. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
I have a couple of questions. Firstly, when you walked us through the design process of your studio,
Yes.
I didn't see too much involvement of engineers out there. Like, when you design cars, do you actually involve engineers to consult whether the kind of parts they've designed, like they've designed the drivetrain, they've designed the suspension, so whether these parts would ultimately, because it all has to come together.
Yes.
So do you consult with engineers, like when you're designing the exterior, like whether those parts will actually fit into the final car?
Well, when you design a car, you work with normally you have a platform, let's say. So if you have to design the new SUV for Toyota, maybe you have the RAV4 platform, and in that platform there is all the suspension. There is a lot of, we call a carryover component. Carryover means that there are no new pieces. You take these pieces from other cars, old cars, and that saves a lot of money, because everything you touch in a car is like million in 1 second. So the job of the car designer, I feel, is a bit more exciting than an engineer that works in OEM, because it can work in a full carryover car. Let's say you have a Suzuki Maruti 3 volumes, and you have to design the 2 volumes, and you can keep all the front the same. So basically, with the engineer, you have to think about how can I make the car looks longer, how can I make the car looks more with more luggage space, and in this way you give input to the engineers, and the engineers sometimes listen to you, sometimes no. It's your ability to make things possible. So this is why more you are prepared technically, and more you can actually solve problems in that way. So I feel that about suspension is a bit different. In our studio, we work a lot actually with these kind of things, because we have a compact team. So we have to face also these problems, especially if you work with a Chinese company for the road condition. You can give suggestion in how high the car can be from the ground, for the ground clearance, and the wheelbase can be, to get access to the car more easily. So there are all things that help to build a successful product. Because normally in the company there is 100 of engineers that doesn't know nothing about what the other are doing and so on. So it's really important to know everything about the car, yes.
And while doing that, do you actually consider whether the concept you're thinking of, whether it's actually manufacturable or not?
Sorry?
I'm asking that while doing the designing part and what you mentioned right now, that you collaborate with other people. So while doing that, do you actually consider the manufacturability of the concept
Yes, you mean
in
the
a factory?
the factory. Yes, normally when you design a car, you follow everything until like the last little details. So you have to know how to manufacture a car. You have to be there. You have to adjust little details, little problems you are facing while you are finalizing the production. Sometimes your design doesn't work. Maybe on the sketching on the paper can be the best design ever, but then it doesn't work package, doesn't work with that proportion, and for this reason, designer has to be always present in the process. I guess it's the only job that is covering everything from the first briefing to the motor show. There is no other jobs that are so complete in that way, and so this is why after 10 years you are working in the car industry, you actually know how to build a car. You can't do it by yourself, but you know how to guide the people that, yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
So this is going to be the last question. We're a little short on time, so this is going to be the last question.
Hello, sir.
Hi.
Sir, just because you told about Maruti Suzuki, so
Yes.
you must be knowing that they sell the similar cars like Maruti Suzuki Swift here and Suzuki Swift in other countries. But the Maruti Suzuki Swift car fails very badly in the crash tests
Okay.
according to the US and UK standards.
Yes.
So you must be thinking about broadening your industry in countries like India, China. So what are your views about that? On that, are you going to give us the same quality which you are going to give there, or inferior quality?
Basically, about the pedestrian crash, yes, it's a big problem because Chinese company don't care much about pedestrian crash. There is a lot of legislation. For sure, less rules you have to follow, better the car will look like at the end. Can you hear me still? Yes. More there is like a constriction, like legal constriction, and more difficult is to shape a beautiful car. This is why actually, if you go to Europe, there is much more legislation that doesn't allow you to have a nice bonnet, long bonnet, with muscles and everything, because when you hit a person, that can give a problems. We know these things. We know how to design cars for legislation, but it's not things that we can do it because that things are ordered by the CEO, are ordered by marketing offices, because are changing also the way the car is costing, the time you have to spend in research and testing, and at the end how the car will cost finally in the market. So more the car is secure and more is costing. This is why maybe some companies, to save money, they are putting out in the market cars that are not super safety, but then they are costing maybe 10 times less than a BMW or a Volvo. That's why actually there is these big gaps.
With this, we come to the end of our session. We are short on time. I'd like to request Dr. A.R. Harish to present a token of appreciation to Mr. Andrea Mocellin.
Hi. Nice to meet you. Hi. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Sorry. Yes, it's always like a secret word that is not every day in the newspaper, but yes, it's a complicated. So it's always difficult to describe at the beginning everything because it can look like really intense or boring, but I think it's nice to see the background of the prototype on the car design. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thanks, guys. Thank you. Right.
Yeah, so there's a Juniper panel discussion going on at RM 101 It's going to be interesting. They're going to offer free pizzas and goodies, so you can go check them out. Juniper panel discussion at RM 101. Free pizzas and goodies.